Episode 119 of Australia's #1 marketing show. If public speaking scares the pants off you, then listen in, because all that's about to change.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
Welcome back, listeners, to Australia's #1 marketing show. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and it is a pleasure to have you along because you right there are a motivated small business owner who wants to crank out some good marketing that drives customers to your business. And that's what this show is all about. We are brought to you by the very, very good folks at Net Registry, and I also want to welcome everyone from the Flying Solo community. Now, in today's show, we have got an interview with Cam Barber. Cam Barber from the Vivid Method. Now, Cam is a presentation expert. He is here to tell us how to remove the nerves that you experience when you think about getting up on stage and presenting your business or your brand. He's also going to give a simple tip on how to get a flying start to any presentation you give, and it involves just a few words. It's a great tip. Oh boy, is it a good tip. Now, also going to talk to you about some developments in my personal brand and what I am doing to build it. Some great things there, kind of coincides with getting Cam on the show actually. And also, I've got some exciting stuff. Just signed up with the Speakers Bureau and got a bit of travel coming up, thinking of doing some meetups in the countries that I'm going to. I'll share all that after the interview. I want to give a little bit of feedback on a little tip, actually. I want to share 3 ways to remove the subjectivity when seeking feedback on any part of your marketing. Going to do that after the interview as well. So lots in store, guys. Now, as you know, this show could not exist without the very good folks at Net Registry. They help you get your marketing sorted online, okay? Any aspect of it. I just want to draw your attention to their Grow Online package, which is an absolute cracker. They will do this whole website analysis for you with you at the other end of the phone. They will then put together a search engine optimization program, which basically has you ranking on the top of Google for 10 key words. They'll do the setup for free and monthly reporting and phone consultation with a dedicated account manager. You also get a search engine optimization ebook. It's $150 a month, and it is a minimum of 6-month commitment, because here's the thing, like search engine optimization is a bit like the tide. It goes in and out. Once done, it's not always done. You're always competing against your competitors for best rankings, and that Grow Online package is a ripper. Go to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see a Net Registry banner, and click on that and you will find the Grow Online package for you to explore. Now, let's talk Cam Barber. Cam Barber has a business called the Vivid Method for public speaking. He is a public speaking coach to CEOs, media personalities, and sporting clubs, including my beloved Hawks, for those in Melbourne or who know Aussie rules. So I've got to love Cam for that. And he is going to share with us some absolute gold. Guys, I just know that getting up on stage and presenting is a great way of building your personal brand and your business. And I really encourage you to do it. I can't talk about it enough. I've spoken about it previously. It's a great way of honing your message. It's a great way of getting in front of more than one person at a time. Great leverage, great personal branding, and Cam shares some absolute gold with us. He's also got a process that I'll share with you afterwards. He shares it with you during this interview, but I'll direct you to a website where he has put together a fantastic product called Speech Outline, in which he shows you how to put together speeches and presentations really easily. It's all about removing the nervousness, and you are about to learn and discover how to remove the nervousness so you can add presenting, public speaking to your business's marketing strategy. Here's Cam Barber. Cam Barber from the Vivid Method. Welcome to Small Business Big Marketing.
G'day.
How are you, mate?
I'm good. Nice to talk to you, Tim.
I hope you're not nervous.
No, I'm not nervous. No, I was actually fidgeting again. I was looking at something on my desk.
Because, mate, if you're nervous, then we're all in trouble, because what we are here to talk about today is public speaking.
That's right.
And if there ever was reason to have the anxiety levels increase amongst many of my listeners, it's those two words. But, Cam, why is that?
Nerves are normal. This is a really important point. And one of the biggest problems or challenges people have is that they think it's not normal. They think, I've been doing this for years, or I'm experienced, or I'm a confident person, and I shouldn't be nervous. But there are reasons why you're nervous, and they're observable. And when you get comfortable with that, when you understand the nerves, you can manage them.
Mm. Yeah, well, like everything in life, it's there for a reason.
It's there for a reason. So let's talk about nerves then straight up. So a simple principle that helps you process this is that all anxiety is the result of uncertainty. So behind all nerves or anxiety, there's a sense that I feel uncertain about something. Now, when you just understand that basic idea, instead of being lost in the nerves, instead of having your mind clouded with one thought, which is, crikey, I'm nervous, I wish I wasn't, you can say, all right, well, what am I uncertain about? What can I get more certain about? And a big part of that when it comes to presentations or public speaking is, what's my message? How does it relate to my audience? And am I clear on the structure and the key ideas of my presentation?
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you go looking for what is causing the nerves or the anxiety. I found I do a lot of public speaking, and I know a number of years ago, one of my aha moments was realising that, and this is kind of obvious on reflection, but if I know what I'm talking about, then the idea of sharing it with others is quite easy. If I didn't know what I was talking about, I shouldn't be up there in the first place, and I have every right to be nervous.
Well, that's right. If you're fundamentally uncertain about why you're there, well, there's not much we can do. It's like you can't teach a drowning person to swim. So we want to look at a few things beforehand and get really clear.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I started this business, so my background's in radio. I was with Fox FM in Melbourne, part of the Oz Stereo Group many years ago as a sales manager. And I did a course, a presentation skills course, and I came away from this 2-day course more nervous and far more self-conscious than before the course. And the harder I tried to follow the systems and the rules that we were taught in this course, the more frustrated I became. And so it was such a problem for me that I really started researching and ended up developing a method we call the Vivid Method for public speaking. And the big problem, and this is not uncommon today, the big problem, if I can simplify it down, is that this course was teaching us to be someone who we weren't.
Yes.
So they're saying, look, we've got research that says 6 gestures a minute is the correct number of gestures. Cam, you're doing 60. So you're 10 times wrong. And this idea that there's one right way of doing it is a really bad idea. It just doesn't work. We're all different. And what you want to do is get comfortable in your own skin, find a way to relax, to breathe, and then focus all your attention on, okay, who's my audience? What's my message? Let me get really clear about that.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so much truth in that. There is so much power in being able to be yourself. And once again, like, not brain surgery, is it, Cam? Like the idea of actually going, you know what, I'm just going to be me. I don't have to worry about how many slides a minute. I don't worry about how many gestures. I don't worry about whether I have my hands in my pocket or out of my pocket or whatever. It's like, be me.
Well, that's true, but in a way, it's not that simple to do.
Oh, because, really? I thought we were wrapping things up.
Well, look at what happened. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're sitting down at a meeting, and there are 10 people around the table, and you're all sitting, and you take turns in speaking. Mm-hmm. Now, because you're all sitting, you're all part of the same group. So even though the spotlight is on you a little bit when it's your turn to speak or you're trying to get an idea across, you're still part of the same group. But if I say to you, Tim, okay, mate, now that it's your turn to speak, can you stand up, walk out to the front of the room, and now tell us your idea?
Ooh.
Now, what's happened is that you're no longer part of the group. You've been separated and you're looked at. Now, the spotlight on you is brighter and you feel disconnected. And so that creates uncertainty. There's a natural stress response that occurs. And so you can't just say to people, hey, be yourself, because they're up there going, well, is this right? I'm not sure. What you need to do is say there are 2 or 3 things you need to get certain about. And it keeps coming back to, do you know what your message is? Do you feel confident or certain about that? Have you structured it well? In other words, do you know how you're going to start and how you're going to end? Or are you just going to keep talking and hope there'll be some sort of sign from heaven so you'll know when to stop?
Can I just challenge you on that? So, because part of that is like, okay, I'm sitting around a table, 10 people, we're all going round, we're all sitting down, we're all sharing ideas. Someone says, Tim, get up, go to the front of the table and present. If I was strong enough of mind, couldn't I just go, yeah, okay, well, I'll change the location. I'll stand and I'll move to the top of the table, but I'm going to be myself.
Yes, well, well, great, mate, love it. But what does strong enough of mind mean? How do you get from, whenever you were in school, you were nervous. It's normal to be nervous. The first time, if you're a kid, if you're a teenager, if you're an adult, whatever it was, the first time or few times you're exposed into the spotlight and you're asked to speak, people are all looking at you differently. They're looking at you like, oh, okay, you're in charge. Gauge us, entertain us somehow.
Yep.
You will be nervous. You can't avoid that. You've got to go through some experiences. So the question then becomes, and I love your question, how do you get from I don't know what to do, and because I don't know what to do, I feel uncertain and therefore have anxiety, to strength of mind? This is, in fact, fundamentally what I've focused my attention on for the last 15 years. How do you get from there to there?
Big is a big leap. Well, it depends, person dependent, but, there is a chasm.
Everybody's different, but there is a chasm, and you need to understand what's there. And what we're given again, so a lot of what we're taught is you're supposed to act this way. Now, once you do that, you're moving further into uncertainty because you're thinking, oh, what were the steps? How many gestures a minute was it? You know what else? I'll give you a couple more of these myths, these absolute myths that send us in the wrong direction. So how many gestures are you supposed to have? Are you meant to have open gestures or closed gestures? What if you put your hands in your pockets? Have you ever heard that one?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, in fact, I've literally been filming some videos today for my website, and I had that whole discussion, like, should I have my hands in my pockets, shouldn't I? And I just kept coming back to, you know what? Be yourself.
Find a way to be comfortable. I like that better. Be yourself, again, is a little bit uncertain. Find a way to be comfortable allows people to go, oh, okay, am I or am I not? And I can process that. You might have heard this other myth. The first 8 seconds forms the lasting impression. What a terrible pressure. What a ridiculous pressure. Haven't you heard that? First impression?
Yeah. Imagine that. I mean, you get to the 9-second mark and you go, I stuffed that up. Might as well walk off now.
Correct. And that's absolutely what some people are thinking. You're thinking, I've stuffed this up. There's no way I can recover, but crikey, I've got to stand here for another 20 minutes. And so, that's where people have these terrible experiences with nervousness where they really didn't need to. So if you just tell someone, hey, you're a pretty strong of mind sort of a guy or girl, why don't you just stand up and go? Your mind's spinning with, oh, isn't the first impression everything? And how, should I have my hands? Oh, look, my hands in my pocket. Is that good or bad? You do need to process these things.
One of the things I do, and Cam, I'd love to kind of pull apart this vivid method that you've created. One of the things that I do when speaking is, there's a number of things actually, but I do just take the mindset that it's a conversation with the audience, and conversation is kind of part of my, I guess, one of the personality traits that I want to get across. In fact, I actually look to Jamie Oliver as a guy who I kind of look to as someone who is just a wonderful presenter / speaker. So I kind of often go, what would Jamie do? But that for me, it takes a lot of pressure off. And I found myself speaking last week. I arrived at the venue. Sure enough, there's the little raised platform with a lectern, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm so not a lectern guy. What I found is when I got up on the stage, started speaking, I kind of used the lectern in a different way. I kind of stood alongside it, I leant on it, and it allowed me to just kind of, once again, just be more conversational than kind of keynote presenter lecturer.
Yeah. Well, you made two important points here. One is, yes, if you can be conversational, which is where most people are most comfortable, then not only will you think more clearly because you're comfortable, you'll connect with your audience. Jamie Oliver's a great example. And if your personality style seems to fit with him, then simply simplifying it down to, hey, what would Jamie do is really a good way to go. It simplifies your process. The second thing, though, is the lectern. Yeah, put people behind a lectern and they think, I have to act a certain way.
Yeah.
And you don't. And this is a really important point, that you, the speaker, have much more impact or choice about how you want to create the environment in the room than you might think. So what a lot of speakers do is they walk into a room and they think, this is the mood, I have to match the mood. And the real problem with that is that most people who are sitting in the room waiting for someone to speak are relatively quiet and stiff because they're waiting for something to happen. If you take on that mood, quiet and stiff, then it might really throw you. Whereas you've got the ability to go, hello, hey, look, do you want a secret? We'll jump ahead. We'll talk about the Vivid method in a second, but you want to know one of the greatest secrets that I developed with a client?
Mate, bring it on. I want more than one, but let's start with one.
All right, here's a superpower secret. You can eliminate the start of your presentation. Now, you might be wondering what I'm talking about.
Go.
The start is where the most anxiety is. If you think about it, that starting point, just before and just as you speak, is where there's most uncertainty. You haven't got a rhythm yet, you've had no response, etc. So a lot of people throw themselves at the start. Whereas if you start off your presentation with these words, you eliminate all of that pressure.
Here we go. Insert drum roll. Thank you, Liam.
Is everyone listening? Are you sitting down? Was this good enough to stand up with? No. Start off with, just before we get started, ...
There it is.
In other words, just before we get started. Now, you might plan this. Just before we get started, I thought I'd say thank you to such and such. Or just before we get started, we're really we're going to be talking about this one idea here today, and it might seem complicated, but it's as simple as X. It doesn't matter what it is. When you say, just before we get started, everybody takes on the perception that this is a conversation. This is relatively informal.
I love that. Tell me on that point, Cam, because what if you go just before we get started, how's everyone feeling? Or what if you add a question to the audience? So I actually think it's a bad thing because often the audience doesn't want to respond. And if you don't get a response, then that puts a real cob wash on it.
Correct. So what you're doing then is you're opening up another thing, which we'll call direct involvement with the audience. Now, direct involvement with the audience has some strengths and weaknesses. It has some risks associated with it, and you just highlighted one of them. A lot of the time, a speaker will do that because it takes the pressure off them. They don't like the spotlight, and so they go, if I can quickly throw the spotlight to the audience, that'll make me feel better. And most of you must have sat through one of these events where the speaker says, okay, everyone get up and shake your hands, and the person next to them, and
Team hug.
Now, look, in some situations that will change the mood of the room, but often when that happens to me, because it still happens, I sit in audiences a lot, I try to watch a lot of speakers, I think, well, that's a bit of a weak effort. I feel like you're throwing the pressure onto us. We don't know what to do. I don't know who this person is next to me. Isn't there a better way? So, look, you can do that. It depends on how it works and your style and what you've got in mind, but just simplifying it, taking out the risk and saying, just before we get started, here's a such and such. If you want to ask a question, that's not a bad idea. So just before we get started, what I thought I'd do today is focus on such and such, but I know we've got a diverse audience. We can focus more on this or this. What would you prefer?
Like that. Just before we get started, we're introducing that puppy at the next keynote. Hey, okay, Cam, Vivid method, mate. I want to pull that apart and give my listeners really clear structure, step by step, on how to nail their public speaking. But why the name, the Vivid method?
Oh, good question. Vivid's just a good word. If you think about vivid, it means two things: clear and memorable. Mm-hmm. And if you talk about any form of communication, they're the outcomes, they're the goals. You want it to be clear, you want it to be memorable. So vivid communication, vivid presentations, vivid public speaking, vivid media skills. This is the branding that we've used for all of our training courses and our coaching, etc. Because we want it to be simple. Is it clear? Do you know how to make it memorable?
Isn't there a big word missing there? Persuasive?
Well, yes, persuasiveness and selling ideas is important, but it's not always important. You're not always trying to be persuasive. We used to push that word a bit harder, but I speak with a lot of people who are in finance or accounting or legal, or they're doing a presentation that is an update on a project, and they say, I don't want to persuade them. I really just want to inform them and engage them. So persuasion's great, but we want to be clear and memorable. And if your message is a persuasive message, if your goal is to get them to buy an idea or to take an action, then we've got a persuasive focus, but we've still got to make that clear as to why they should take that action and make it memorable to engage them throughout.
Yeah, okay. I would have thought even a legal presentation or an architect updating on, progress of the design, there'd still be a call to action of some sort, like persuading people to, agree with him, or persuading people to let him move on to the next stage without kind of, There is always you want someone to do something as a result of hearing you speak more often than not. Is that true?
It is true. And whether we use the word persuasion or not, I've found a sort of a personality style thing. Mm-hmm. I'll give you another example. I was helping, so we also do messaging sessions. So we help organisations and sporting clubs identify what their key messages are as a company or as a department. And so I was working with a large finance company, and they said, we want to have passion in there. Half the room basically said, if you're not passionate, if you can't say out loud, I'm passionate to be here every day working, why bother coming in? And the other half of the room were going, what are you talking about? Calm down. I don't know that you need to pound a table and say passion. And so, what about belief? Can't we have belief? No, passion. And so what I identified that day years ago was that the extrovert style personality style loves the word passion, whereas the introvert style thinks it's a bit over the top. But they ultimately mean the same thing. Belief or passion was the same commitment to coming to work. So I think persuasion falls into the same category.
Yeah.
People are saying, yeah, I want to convince them to hear, but I don't want to trick them. They see persuasion as a bit too salesy. So I'm just sort of stepping out of that argument and saying what you just identified. And this is part 2 of the Vivid method.
Part 2?
Part 2, because we're why not? We've got a structure we can jump in it randomly.
Go for it. So, okay, let's just be clear. So, Vivid method is a method of. Would it be best to summarise it as saying it's going to give, if you follow the Vivid method of public speaking, it's going to make you a great public speaker who speaks from the heart? Is that too kind of soft?
Well, again, some people will love that. Probably 50% of any audience will go, yeah, great, speak from the heart. The other half are going to go, what are you talking about, speak from the heart? I'm trying to get them to understand the new strategy or the focus. So I love it. That's great, speak from the heart. I wouldn't use those words. I'd say the Vivid method is going to help you plan and deliver a compelling presentation.
Love it. Okay, let's get into it. How do we do that?
So there are 3 parts, and just for fun, we're jumping into part 2. So part 2 we call create a speech outline or create a presentation outline, and that has 2 parts to it. One is, what's your message? So we've got a template that allows you to sort your thoughts, think about your audience, and define your message. Mm-hmm. And that's where, coming back to something you said earlier, as part of that process, you either want your audience to think something specific or do something specific. Mm-hmm. If you don't want them to think something or do something, then yes, why are they presenting? Why are they standing up? So a do might be use this process, or come in with more passion, or whatever it might be. You want them to actually take an action.
Yep.
A think is probably more common, and it's where you literally will state what you want them to think. So, for example, this is a fantastic process for preparing and delivering a compelling presentation. That's what I want you to think. I'm going to define the message in those exact words.
And feel free to role play here, Cam. I don't mind a bit of role play, so I'll be your guinea pig.
All right. Well, so what do you want your audience to think? We've got a great radio show. Mm-hmm. in one or two, well, just in one tight sentence, what do you want them to think? This will save you time. This is going to be fun. These shows will help you make more money. And there might be all of those, but if you're going to have a message, you've got to start with the core idea. You can add more later. So,
hang on, when you talk about radio show, what are you talking about? How about we go on a presentation I gave last week, see whether it works for that. So the presentation I gave last week was all about the power of content marketing.
Right. Love it. So what's your message? So firstly, so this is the process. Who's your audience?
Small business owners in the financial planning sector.
Great. What do you want them to think or do as a result of this presentation?
Oh, there are two things. Well, I want them to agree with me that there's never been a better time to market a small business. I want them to think that the way to go about that is through creating great content that allows them to share the knowledge they have within the financial services industry.
They're both really good messages, but if I was your coach, which I guess I am right now, I would say pick one. Pick the one you think is stronger. And in listening to it, I think your focus is content marketing. So there's never been a better time. We might save till later. So in a sentence, what do you say? You're saying, I think this is a do.
Yeah. I want them to get out there and start
marketing. And again, this is what most people do. It's funny, a funny thing. Most people, and unfortunately most processes to plan a speech or a presentation, don't ask you to define the exact words you'll say. They say, "Oh, write your objective statement down." Well, I want them to agree that I'm a fabulous bloke and, no, give the exact words. So the exact words would be something like, content marketing is the cheapest and most effective way for you to market your business. Is that right? Is that good? Would you modify that?
Cheapest and most effective. Content marketing is the best way for you to get your thoughts and opinions across, which as a result will be the best way and cheapest way to market your business. So I'll go with what you said.
Well, let's just make it best then, because I said, what did I say? Cheapest or something else?
Cheapest and most effective. Content
marketing is the best way to market your business.
Yep.
Okay, do you know what that is? Now, in my hand, Tim, you can't see this, I have a red ball. Some people would call it a stress ball. It's a spongy ball. Can you hear it being sponged?
I can.
It's not a stress ball, it's a message ball. Because one of the principles we're going to go back to in a minute is that message transfer is your measure of success in a business presentation.
Gotcha.
Not your gestures, not your conversational tone, not the pausing that you do, which is wonderful, not the slides that you might have. All of those things have an impact. But message transfer is your measure of success. Here's what we found. 95% of business presenters don't know what their message is.
Ooh, nasty.
I say that again. Message transfer is your measure of success, but you don't know what your message is. Guess what that does? Fills you with uncertainty. So we're defining this message, and what we just defined is half a message. I am now holding this red ball up and covering the bottom half. You've got a great half a message, which is content marketing is the best way to market your business. The next step in this process is to get the other half, which is basically a because. So let's...
Because?
Because.
Oh, because. Yeah. So I'm getting this. This is playing right into what happened last week. So, for example, like I'm giving a whole lot of examples of content marketing to these financial planners, right? Some of which were financial planning related, others of which were completely different industries. But each time I would always pull it back to the core message, which is, hey, it's all about how good content marketing is as a way of promoting your business, even though that wasn't industry specific.
Well, that's right. Once you've got the message, it gives you such freedom to answer questions and keep coming back to the core message, to find other examples, but then link them to it. So we really want to define this message. But let's complete it, Tim, because we haven't quite finished yet. So what we want to do now, we've got the first half, which is content marketing is the best way to market your business. What we need is the second half of that message, which is the 2 or 3 or 5 reasons why that's true. So you just made a claim. You haven't backed your claim up yet.
Gotcha.
So what are the, let's say, 3 reasons why content marketing is the best way to market your business.
Okay, so it allows you to express that mountain of knowledge that you're standing on.
Right.
Okay. It allows for an emotional engagement between you and your audience, so it's more pull than push marketing.
Right.
It is inexpensive relative to, say, advertising or direct marketing. There you go. There's 3.
Bang. Love it.
Boom.
Now, that's great. It's a great message. If I was your coach, let's say it first. So here's what we've got. This is another tip. This is a really good tip. In the planning stages of your speech or presentation, test your message out loud. So when it's written down and you go, oh, yeah, that looks good, but you find that when you say it, it doesn't flow or it doesn't really represent the core idea. So test it out loud and see how it sounds and keep playing with it until you've got something that you're going to say, because you are ultimately going to say it. So it sounds something like this. And also imagine that you're wrapping up your presentation. Here's another tip. You should end your presentation with a message. Most presentations end with it looks like I'm out of slides. Any questions? So one of the worst ways to end a presentation. The best way is to end with your message. So you go, so just to wrap up, content marketing is the best way to market your business for 3 reasons. It allows you to express that massive knowledge that you have. Secondly, it creates emotional engagement with your readers and your customers. And thirdly, it's inexpensive compared to normal advertising.
Yep.
How does it sound to you?
I'm in.
Right. So that's great. We've got a really good message. If I was your coach, though, I'd say, having had a go at content marketing, the biggest objection I've got to it, because I agree with all of that, is how long it takes. You've got to write the articles, you've got to produce the content. So is there anything that you would say to address that concern?
If you just introduced that is that an audience question, or are you highlighting that as a potential something that people are thinking that I should overcome now before I close?
Yeah, no. What we're doing is we're still sitting at our desk planning our message.
Gotcha.
And as part of that planning process, you want to go, well, what are the thoughts, what are the objections going to be in the mind of the audience? This is how persuasion occurs, by the way. We don't have to say the word persuasion for this process to address it. If we can guess that there are some objections or concerns in the mind of the audience, we want our message to address those. And look, we probably haven't got time to do it, but this is the process of planning. You get a message, you test it out loud, and then you try and shoot holes in it.
Yeah, love it.
And see if you can fortify it against, okay, now, even though you might think it's going to take you a lot of time, 30 minutes a week gets you started. Or something like that.
I love the speech outline, Cam. I think it's a very powerful thing to be able to have. I mean, when you've got structure, structure is structure. It's something you can lean on.
Correct, and gives you certainty. So now that's the first part of this speech outline process. Now we've got a message. The second part is simply what we call the chunk structure. So you want to know how you're going to start and how you're going to end. You're going to start by saying, g'day, this presentation's about, something like that, to keep it simple. You might do a little preamble like just before we get started. We've talked about you're going to end it with your message. And so what's in between? Simply chunks. You're going to have 2, 3, or 4 chunks. Now, that's a guideline, not a rule. One of the problems is when people tell you this is a rule, you must have 3. No, you might have 2. 2 is easy to remember. You might have 4. If you really want to, go to 5. But the reason we're suggesting 2, 3, or 4 chunks or sections to your presentation is that 4 is that point where after that people go, this is complicated. Or I could remember 2 things as your audience. I could remember 3 things. Can probably remember 4. I probably cannot remember 5 if you ask me 2 hours after the presentation. So even if you are presenting on brain surgery or something really complicated, you still want to have this opening where you go, hey, g'day, we're going to be talking about content marketing and how you can market your business more effectively, and we're going to have a look at 3 areas.
Gotcha. So these chunks are the areas?
Correct.
Okay. And within each of those areas, you want examples and stories, I'm guessing? Evidence,
examples, stories. Yep. You need to prove your point or to persuade. And then at the end of each one, you should have optionally a wrap up. So the point here is we've been talking for 5 minutes on how to create content marketing. The key point is 30 minutes a week or something short and simple.
Yeah, love it. Love it, mate.
So there's part 2. Do you want the other parts?
Yeah. How many parts are there?
There are 3 parts.
Okay, well, give us that final one.
No, I'll give you the first one.
Yeah, that's right. We did start at number 2. What's the first one?
So very simply, the first part is what we call the Clarity First principles. There are 5 principles to help you think clearly and control nerves. And we've looked at a couple already. Very quickly, all anxiety is caused by uncertainty. Secondly, message transfer is your measure of success. Thirdly, we all have the closeness problem. That is, the closer you are to an idea or a subject, the harder it is to see the perspective of somebody else.
Yeah.
Which is why you need a planning process in part 2. 4, natural style unlocks your talent, which we've talked about. And finally, you can control anxiety by understanding it. And in our training courses, that's where we go into what exactly is happening with the stress response. It's happening for a good reason. It's trying to help you, but it does release adrenaline. It does contract your muscles. It does affect your breathing. And when you understand what's going on, it's much easier to release those physical symptoms.
I remember doing it. I've done a few of those public speaking courses that you were talking about where you are given all the different formulae and it does kind of do your head in. One thing that, to your point about natural style, unlocking your talent, I do recall one of the beneficial things that I did was video myself speaking, or they videoed myself speaking, and watching it back. As much as you kind of sit there and cringe and go, oh my God, blah, blah, it is quite a powerful thing to see what you're doing, because the internal conversation you're having in your head is often so very different to what's actually being seen by everyone else.
Yeah. So look, getting video feedback can be helpful in that it gives you objective feedback, and you can make an assessment, by seeing something objectively rather than guessing in your head. But, we don't do as much video as we used to, because even though you have that benefit with video, what we've noticed in training courses is that a lot of people worry too much then about how they look. They have a few gestures that, they're not perfect. No one's perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Bill Gates says Richard Branson says when he speaks. Nobody cares. They're really good at messaging. So you don't have to be perfect. And the video for some people was a hindrance in that they wanted to improve 15, 20 different things that they saw.
Yeah, right.
We're just trying to get them to focus on the simple stuff. If it's really simple, the process of planning and delivering a presentation is simple, you will use it. You will be happy to take on new presentations. If you think there are 15 or 20 things you want to get right, you'll put it off and it'll be a high drama.
Yeah, love that.
There's our thoughts on that.
Listeners, I'm talking to Cam Barber, who is the creator of the Vivid Method of Public Speaking. Cam, I went out to my listeners. I whacked it on Facebook. I said, listen, guys, I'm talking to Australia's leading authority. I pumped your tyres up. Australia's leading authority on public speaking. How about that?
I like that. Well, you're right.
Yeah, okay. Well, you told me to say that. Now, I've got some questions from Facebook followers and from some listeners via email. I'll hit you with them.
Great.
Quick answers. Terry Delaney asks...
Sorry. One thing. We didn't give them the third part. They'll kill us if we don't, very quickly.
Wow, I thought we did. There you go. So we've got clarity. We've got speech
clarity
outline.
First principles. Yeah, clarity first principles, which we've gone through.
Yeah.
Create a speech outline, which is message and structure.
Yeah.
And then thirdly is give great explanations.
Well, I thought we'd covered that, but go on, you expand on that.
We won't go into much detail. Look, we cover 9 things you can do, but you pretty much know this stuff. Metaphor, analogy, examples, visuals. There's a bunch of things you can do. And we, again, suggest you don't try and go with all 9. Pick 1 or 2.
Yeah. Nothing more. Well, that's all about storytelling and just being able to, it's that old, don't tell me you're funny, tell me a joke.
Yeah, well, and everyone's different. Some people will do that automatically and some people will be more logical, and that's great, whatever works to convince your audience. But, just to wrap up that process, and we'll go to those questions, what we found is if you get steps 1 and 2 right, that is, you can think clearly and you can control nerves and you know about message transfer, and then you have a structure, the third part, giving great explanations, tends to happen automatically because you're clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that, mate. Now, listen, here's some questions. I reckon we've knocked off a few of these. Terry Delaney asks how to control nerves. We've done that. And he says, should I use beta blockers?
I just wrote an article on that. If you want to go to the website, vividmethod.com and hit the blog, you'll find, should I use beta blockers for public speaking? And I'll give you the answer. And the answer is it's up to you, but you don't need to.
No, I think we'll keep drugs out of the public speaking world. world. Amy Jacobson says, what's the best opening you've ever seen? Well, you have shared the old just before we get started tip, but is there an opening that stands above all else?
Well, there's so many ways to look at this. If you want to get creative and do something creative or dramatic at the start, the only thing do anything you want, and there's some great examples of that. But just make sure you tie it back to your message at the end. You don't want to have this great opening where people go, oh, that's what I remember, but it's got nothing to do with my message. Look, I like it. Tom Peters is the funnest speaker that I know. I don't know if you know Tom Peters. He's getting a bit long in the tooth now, but he wrote in the 80s, In Search of Excellence. He's written about 10 or 12 management books, and he's regularly been ranked for sort of 20, 25 years in the top 10 of public speakers in the world. And he's a nut. I love giving him as an example, because if you're trying to follow the rules and do the perfect presentation,
he breaks every one of them.
He breaks them all.
Love it.
I saw him speaking with a few people like Bill Clinton and Anita Roddick from The Body Shop. Who's the guy from General Electric? Jack Welch.
Oh, yep.
And they all, of course, stood on the stage, many behind a lectern, and spoke. When he came out, he took 3 steps on the stage, walked down the stairs, and walked up and down the rows of the seats for the rest of his whole presentation.
Oh, I love that.
And it just shook us. And he shouts at you, China!
I love it. I'll have to Google him. Now, Ted Jedinak, I think that's how you pronounce it, says, how does he go about researching the needs of the audience he's going to address? Well, he being you, assuming you give talks anyway, but how do you research the audience?
Yeah, great question. The question is the best part, because a lot of people don't do enough of this. Now, there's 2 things you can do, really. One, pick up a phone and ask somebody. I do a lot of coaching with senior people, and they'll often ring me and say, I've got this big event coming up. I'm speaking with all my industry peers, hundreds of people in the audience. I need some coaching. Money's no object. Got to get it right. And I'll say things like, oh, what's the theme of the event? Don't know. Who else is speaking? What are they speaking on? Don't know. I'll send you an email. You can get on the phone and ask a couple of people to find out. That's one. The second thing is, if you've got a process like we're suggesting you use, where you think about, our process has the 4 views of any audience. And if you just think about those, you can make pretty good guesses. And most of the time when we're coaching, we're guessing what our audience cares about, but you can do a really good job of that.
Absolutely agree with that. One question that comes to my mind as you're saying that, and no one has asked this, and I should have, is PowerPoint. What's your view on PowerPoint? Yes, well, that's a very broad question. PowerPoint is a tool. Yeah, the fashion goes in and out of PowerPoint, so to speak. So sometimes we love it. Sometimes we've got to ban its use. PowerPoint's relatively neutral, like money. Money can be spent on, bad things or helpful. Yeah. So PowerPoint by itself is a good thing. It's how it's used.
PowerPoint and Keynote on the Mac allow you to put up images or slides. That is a fantastic thing. Now, I'll give you want another super tip? This is a super tip. This is at the level of super tip.
Wow. The other one was a power tip. So this is higher.
Could be higher, Tim.
Cam, come on.
High level. Or maybe it's just that as I get ramped up, the importance of what I'm talking about seems to go higher. If you want a simple idea that changes our relationship with PowerPoint, there are a lot of really bad PowerPoint presentations. The problem isn't the tool. The problem is our relationship to it. So we stand in a sort of a 1 metre circle diameter next to the slides, and we click and go, oh, there's some more on here. I'll now talk.
Yeah.
I finished talking about what's on the slide. Click, I'll talk some more. And as I said before, the most common ending is, oh, we're out of slides. Any questions? So what's happening there is that the relationship with PowerPoint is it's in charge and you're the monkey who stands next to it and blurbs out some words from time to time. You've just got to reverse that relationship. You can use PowerPoint to show one slide. If you want to, you could use PowerPoint to show one image that's really helpful for your presentation. So the superpower tip is the B key. Now, do you know what the B key is, Tim?
As in the letter B.
It is the letter B.
The B key. No, don't know.
So most people, even people who've done a full day PowerPoint course on all the 400 features, don't seem to know about the B key. The B key will blank the screen.
Right.
So if you're in Keynote or PowerPoint and you're in slideshow mode and you hit the B key on the keyboard, the whole thing will go blank, as though it's not on at all. And to get your screen back, what do you think you do?
B
again.
I've got a little remote that I use in all my keynotes, and it's got a button that blacks out the screen. I love it.
Correct. It's the same thing. In fact, all that button is doing is remotely hitting the B key. So, and having it on a remote is really powerful because, just think about the B key, what it's doing. It's helping you change the relationship. You're now in control.
It's the look at me key.
Well, you can say that way, but it's just in our relationship with PowerPoint. Basically, PowerPoint has got you on a leash and it's dragging you along. That's the problem. When you start to think about the B key and deciding when you want slides up and when you don't, you're now in charge. It's on a leash. You're in control. So, for example, you might plan to hit the B key when you want to tell a story. You know, you want the structure of your slides. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great tool to have the structure of your presentation up there on slides, but then you want to tell a story that you know pretty well. You don't care about repeating it word for word, and so you hit the B key, you get comfortable, you put your hand back in your pocket, whatever, and you go, now let me tell you this story that illustrates this point.
Yeah, I love that.
Finish the story, you bring the slides back.
I love that. Yeah, that's good. In fact, I'm looking at these questions. Mick Dunn did ask a question about PowerPoint. To paraphrase it, he says, I'm curious what strategies small business owners can use to avoid death by PowerPoint, which I think we've answered that one now. But there's literally a whole discussion around PowerPoint, which we won't go to in now, and how you construct slides. I might do that in a future episode. Jules Blundell says, what's the best advice you could give someone starting out public speaking?
Yeah, the best advice is two things. Clarify your message.
The vivid method.
The vivid method, there you go, it's one thing. And if I was picking two, I'd say your natural style is the right style. You can have rough edges. You don't have to be Brad Pitt. You don't have to be an actor. Just find a way to be comfortable.
Good advice. Hey, Cam, that's brilliant, mate. Have you got any, just to finish up, any particular funny public speaking stories come to mind as you, given you've been doing this for a while? You've probably seen some absolute crackers. I notice on your website you've got a photo of you and none other than President Bill Clinton, who's one of the greats. But, mate, any kind of stories where you can just leave us shaking our head?
No. No, mate, I don't want to do that. I discourage it in every session I've ever done.
Yeah, I can understand. Tell us why.
Let's think about how terrible it can go. But I tell you what, I'll give you two stories about Bill Clinton if you like.
There we go. Mick Jagger said never drop names to me, but, off you go.
The last time I was chatting with Bill, no, I did meet him. I did speak to him for 2 or 3 minutes, and I planned what I was going to say because I wanted to ask him a question. So Al Gore, who was his vice president for 8 years, then ran for election for president of the United States against George Bush, and he lost. It was a very close race. That was the year 2000 election. And on conceding defeat one evening, so Al Gore conceded defeat one evening. The next morning, he made a speech. Now, he wrote that speech himself. He told all his consultants and coaches to get lost, and he made that speech the next morning. And people said that is the best speech we've ever seen Al Gore make.
I know what you're going to say.
One of the best speeches we've seen on Capitol Hill for quite some time. Hang on, why weren't you talking like this to us for the last 12 months during the election campaign? And there's been a few books that have referred to this. There's a great article in Fortune magazine from a few years ago. You can Google this article. It's called "First Kill All the Consultants."
Yep, I get it.
And what he said was, I should have gone with my natural style. The consultants were telling me to be someone I wasn't. They were telling me to use words that rated well in the research, but they weren't words I would use. And so, simply put, Al Gore's a relatively introvert style. But when he rolls up his sleeves and tries to punch his fist and look like an extrovert, people look at him and say he doesn't look right. Now, what he's done now is he's thrown all that away. He just speaks as himself, and he's more famous. He's having more impact on the world than he did back then because he's himself. So pursue your natural style.
Mate, I love that story, and that is an excellent one to finish on. So, Cam, thanks for, I think, probably improving the public speaking skills of all the listeners of Small Business Big Marketing, including myself. And listeners, I'll put some links in the show notes to some of Cam's stuff. If he just stops playing with whatever's on his desk.
Mate, do you know what that is? The guys are on the window, cleaning the windows outside. Control it.
Oh, you got to love podcasting. I will put links to the show notes because Cam has got, he's got a template for the content method that he spoke, for the content method. Is it called the content method? Speech outline.
It's the planning process.
Go to speechoutline.com and have a look at that, and I'll put some links to Cam's website as well. Thanks so much for being on Small Business Big Marketing, Cam.
It's great talking to you, Tim.
See you, mate.
All right, see you.
What about that, folks? How good is it to get those kind of learnings for something that's so important like your public speaking strategy? I hope you learned a lot. I certainly did. I just suggest you go find a stage, and it might be at a chamber of commerce, it might be at some sporting association or club you're associated with. Wherever you can, go find a stage and start practicing what Cam shared with us then. You can also go to speechoutline.com and check out Cam's great product for outlining speeches. I've tried it. I love it. I'm going to be using it going forward in my business. And you know what I suggest you do? Record yourself. Turn on your camera, turn on your iPhone. Remember that product we talked about earlier, iVideo Hero, where you can go and use your iPhone. Just record yourself. It is a good thing to watch you. I know you can kind of cringe. I play back shows when I listen to myself and go, oh my God, did I really sound like that? But there is learning. There is learning in it. So go and record yourself speaking as well. If you haven't got a video camera, even just audio, download like iTalk, 99-cent app for your iPhone, and record yourself and hear yourself speak. So that is a good thing to do. Now, my personal brand, as I was saying at the start of the show, I've been putting some effort over the last month into pulling together some various parts of building my personal brand. And as you know, speaking is really important to me. Every month I'm off somewhere, doing a keynote or running a workshop for a client somewhere in Australia, soon to be the world. I have just launched my personal brand speakers site, if you like. You can go to timreid, reid.com.au and go and have a look at it. It is a website that has been put together purely to sell myself as a speaker, as a marketing speaker. Feel free to have a look through it, look at the structure. Maybe there's some way you can apply a similar site. You can build a similar site for yourself. It includes like my bio, topics that I cover when I do keynotes, testimonials. I just spent time going back and finding all those testimonials that people have written for me on LinkedIn, directly sent to me over the years that I've been speaking. I've included them. I've got a gallery of me in action and, of course, contact details. I've also got my video business card there, which was produced about 2 years ago when I was 30 kilograms heavier, so it's kind of interesting to watch in itself. But that site has been absolutely put together to sell my speaking services. So feel free to go ahead and do that. What I've also done in regards to personal branding and that whole speaking thing is I've signed up exclusively with Australia's largest speakers bureau, ICMI, and they are going to be responsible for getting me speaking gigs. They're going to be marketing me as a small business keynote speaker. So pretty excited about that as well, because all of a sudden, it's a really important part of my business going forward this year, and I'm really leaning into the idea of building that. Already got gigs booked in Vietnam and Dubai. So I'm sort of thinking, boy, if there's anyone listening in Vietnam or Dubai, big places I know, feel free to make contact, tim@smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. I like the idea of actually using the Meetup website that I've registered Small Business Big Marketing at and setting up some meetups overseas also. because I'll be doing them in Australia, doing them in Melbourne, Sydney, any other states that I'll be going to. But I do like that idea. Now, as I said, we've been running Deep Dive Mastermind now for quite a few weeks, and we cover so many great topics. There's 9 small business owners who meet with me every Tuesday via webinar, and we solve each other's marketing problems. I host it, and there's just some wonderful discussions going on. And what I want to do each week is share some of those discussions, or one of those discussions, with you. One of the things that's really kind of keeps coming up is people, rightly so, members are seeking feedback on a particular marketing material that they've produced. And that's part of the reason Deep Dive Mastermind exists, is to get feedback. Now, here's the thing. When we seek feedback on our marketing is so subjective, so incredibly subjective. So unless you give people the background brief as to how and why you got this piece of marketing developed, people are just going to feed back to you subjectively with what they think personally. So I want to give you 3 questions that when you do seek marketing feedback, you provide the information based on these 3 questions. And these 3 questions are, number 1, what's the desired outcome you're looking for from this piece of marketing material? What do you want people to do, having read or looked at or watched or listened to that piece of marketing collateral? Might be an ad, might be a brochure, might be an interview, might be a presentation, whatever it is. What's the desired outcome? Who's it designed or written for? Okay? Who's it designed or written for? Who's your best mate? So we've talked about best mate previously, target audience as called by other marketers, but who's that piece of communication written for or designed for? Third question is, how do you want people to view your brand? Okay, this is all about defining your brand's personality, those 3 to 4 personality traits that define your brand's personality. Now, when you hand over, let's say it's a brochure that you've had designed to someone who you're looking for feedback from, if you give them the answers to those 3 questions, they can use them as filters to give you feedback, and it becomes objective feedback, not subjective feedback. You know, they're going to give you feedback based on, you're trying to create a funky, fresh, young brand. Cool. Well, I think that works, as opposed to them going, putting their kind of brand personality on your brand, for example. So great ways, it's great to get feedback from people, but don't just ask them, what do you think? You got to ask them, what do you think, based on those 3 questions. That's one of the things we've covered in Deep Dive Mastermind recently. If you're keen to get on board Deep Dive Mastermind, then feel free to go over to deepdivemastermind.com and you will find out all about it. Guys, that is enough marketing gold dripping from the ceiling of the Small Business Big Marketing headquarters for another week. Lots of great interviews coming up over the coming weeks. Be sure to subscribe at iTunes if you haven't already, or go to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and sign up and become part of the tribe. That way you can get lots of marketing goodies on an ongoing basis, and you'll be the first to know when stuff happens out of the Small Business Big Marketing headquarters. And head over to facebook.com/smallbusinessbigmarketing, because there's some funny stuff going on over there. All right, guys, have a great week. May your marketing be great marketing. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.